Right, hot mic. All right, like to call the order the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Village of Homewood for Thursday, June 13th, 2024. We've got a reasonably full agenda this evening, so we're gonna get going with our roll call, please.
All right, roll call, member Alfonso,
Here.
member Brandt, or I guess, member Cap,
Here.
member O'Brien,
Here.
member Johnson,
Here.
member Castaneda, and then, member Bransky with, Chair Suzega, present will be, Chair Pro Tem this evening.
Here. All right, first order of business is to approve our minutes from the meeting of May 23rd, 2024. Anybody have any corrections, additions, or other commentary?
I've got a couple. One is on page 6. It's fourth paragraph from the bottom. Member Ryan asked if cost estimates had been generated for the plumbing work required. The applicant, Albana, indicated that they had received estimates of $65,000. That should be in the minutes. I don't recall, although he did state what the project costs were. 300,000, something like that. So that number should be placed in the next paragraph down from his comments at the meeting. And the second paragraph from the bottom, the last line in the middle, Member O'Brien noted that it was not in the purview of the Planning and Zoning Commission to comment on. No, I can comment, but I don't engage. And I mentioned that that's not within our purview. We don't engage, but it was a comment I was making. And the last one is on page 8, second line from the top, middle of the line, stating that the area do not add up perfectly together. The embellishment of perfectly, I never stated. It just didn't foot properly. So perfectly should be removed. Those are the only ones I have.
Anyone else? Going once, going twice. Have a roll call on the amendments, please.
All right, member Alfonso,
Abstain.
member Cap,
Abstain.
member O'Brien,
Yes, with changes.
member Johnson,
Yes.
and, Chair Pro Tem Bransky.
Yes, and acknowledging that, probably should have took a motion for that. Jumped the gun there a little.
So moved,
Let's do a motion.
so moved. We need a second.
I'll second it,
Okay.
with the changes, of course.
We need to review again. 3-2, which doesn't carry, so this will have to get approved on June 27th.
Okay. Next, we come to our regular business cases, and we're going to shuffle the order a little bit just to expedite. So we're gonna pull up item C, case 2411 to the front of the line. This is a special use permit for indoor commercial place of assembly. The applicant is Arnell Newman with Solistic 360. And the way we run our meetings is we're gonna give a little bit of a background information. We're gonna ask the applicant to come up to the podium where we will have you state your name and address for the record. We will swear you in as all testimony regarding the case is given under oath. And then we'll get your explanation of what it is you're trying to do. Legal notice was published in the Daily Southtown on May 30th, 2024. Letters were sent to property owners and residents within 250 feet. Do we receive any responses?
There were no public comments made on this case, or either B or C on this agenda,
Okay,
but C in particular for this one.
all right. And from our background, just briefly, the applicant, Arnell Newman, who has stepped up from Solistic 360, has proposed the operation of a professional studio for film and music production, an existing tenant space at 17811 Brett's Drive. Business will occupy about 3,000 square feet of gross floor area with a mix of offices, production areas, and other service areas related to production of music and film. So, let's get your name for an address for the record.
Bethany Arnell Newman, address 19035 Crawford Avenue, Flossmoor, Illinois.
Okay, and if you could raise your right hand if you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Okay,
Can I
Okay.
have a clarification? We published for the special use and, then discovered that this is not on a collector street, which is one of the requirements of, any commercial place of assembly. So, it requires a variance too. The variance is not here tonight, so we will have to take the issues, but because the applicant is here, we can hear, some information about, and ask questions about the special use.
Yeah, we're not voting on anything, we're just, right, yeah, that was just, okay,
Yeah.
confused there.
so this will be informational only.
Informational.
Okay,
It will be continued.
Right,
Okay.
27.
all right, well, Mr. Newman, go ahead, tell us what your plan is.
Our vision is to build a full production studio at this location, and Brett's Drive worked out very well for us because of the height of the ceiling, right in a commercial condo unit. Our intention is to bring in, actually called the LED unit, which meets the Netflix and HBO film requirements of 25 by 13 feet height, and an LED wall curve. So within that space, we also will have a recording facility that will be placed in the mezzanine level upstairs, which we will be recording from the main floor, if it's a choir or somebody from that nature, in addition to showing students how to run a full production stage with lighting, video, and recording elements in that. We just recently secured a historic piece of equipment from the UK to bring in for that teaching part of the aspect of it. So we're looking forward to have that open so we can bring in students and train students of how to run a production stage and actually show it to the public, like, this is the capabilities that we have here in Homewood.
Where do you anticipate you'll be drawing your students from?
The surrounding areas, actually, I work with, there's a few teachers at Homewood, Flossmoor School that have come to my own facility and stuff, but I've worked with some of the students from HF
Okay.
already. So.
Anybody from the board have any questions? Again, understanding that we're not voting tonight, but certainly can ask the typical questions or for more information.
I've got a couple. What do you do? What is your business?
I'm an executive producer. I actually have two, that's why.
I'm sorry, I didn't articulate my question properly. What is the business?
It's a recording and video production facility.
Okay, you mentioned students. Are you a teaching facility?
I am not a teaching facility, but we will have programs or boot camps to teach the video and recording aspect.
Will you have audiences?
I'm sorry,
Audiences,
we will have audiences.
audience, people,
Yeah,
you will.
yes.
So you will have a studio in effect. People, 50 people, 20 people will be sitting there watching you go through the production of something.
That will be on the presentation side once the project is completed. So we'll be teaching the students to get them up to speed of how to produce the video and film element. And once that's completed, we will open the doors for presentations of their creations.
Okay. I could not understand how this would fall into places of assembly as it is a business in the production of, it has a periphery, an adjunct connection with music and studios, theaters, performance theaters, and so forth. But now I understand. Okay, thank you.
Member Johnson, anything? No. Member Kett?
I do have a couple, or at least one question, for staff. How, in light of what Commissioner O'Brien asked about acknowledging this is a production facility, and that makes sense in a manufacturing district, but it also has the potential for being a studio with an audience. How does our consideration of parking, how will it be impacted by this? For instance, just maybe I should ask you this, how many people can you accommodate here as an audience?
And that's basically gauged, according to the architects that we looked at, safely 80 people.
80 people, so that being said, and we don't need an answer right now, but this is something that I think since we're continuing this, we could certainly research and evaluate this, but you know, one space per 300 square feet for a production unit is one set of parking requirements, and then another set of parking requirements to accommodate 80 people is another. So I think we need to be aware of that. And I'm not trying to suggest that 80 parking spaces are needed with this. However, the proportion works out for it. 1 for 2, 1 for 3 members of the audience. You know, I don't really know, but.
So, right, so those are things that we'll look at in the text amendment case, so some of the examples of that, and Mr. Newman, maybe you can speak to this a little bit. You know, the things like, for example, for fixed seats, I don't believe you'll have fixed seating, correct? It'll be open for,
Everything will be modular, so the stages will adjust, the seating will change based on the event or.
okay. So some of the things we're looking at for other practices that we've learned from other communities of how they gauge these place of assembly uses are, for example, a set of requirements for some uses with fixed seats. For others, if you have an open space, maybe it's a ratio by the you know, the capacity number that you're mentioning that modifies that number that base number that you see, that 1 to 300 ratio for those uses. So there's different things we're looking at, and again, we're finishing vetting those, which is part of the continuance. Since to approve this use, we have to look at both the ability to put the places of assembly use in that M1 zone, but then also we'll want to you know, take a look at these parking requirements, since that's been a topic of discussion with these places of assembly uses at past hearings.
So just for the record, what is the size of this unit?
3,000 square feet.
3, okay. So with that, you need 10 spaces, but if we were worried about the number of people, you would need 20, roughly. Right?
Yep, right, well, right, so it's something we will, that number I can't say, we would have to look at what it would come out with if we modify the parking requirements for those uses, but, yeah. And that's,
Code currently is it's 10 spaces.
right,
How many are allocated for the business?
Yeah, I was told there were 8 currently allocated this day.
Okay, so that would be part of it.
well, so it's part of a larger multi-tenant commercial center. And so there's 145 spaces on that site, which is over parking that center by about 60 to 70 spaces. We looked at this one in a recent case with the auto rental center on the opposite end of the center. And that one, you know, parking demand is kind of tricky to discern with that site because there was supposed to be one additional building on that site originally that was never built. So it's a bit overparked for what is actually on the site now. But yeah, so there's I suppose technically 8 designated for that. But if you looking to the previous case, if you break it down by the number of tenant spaces, and I believe you're taking over 2, right? Right. There's 15 tenant spaces in that building for those 145 spaces, so you can kind of start to break that down a little bit and get a bit more of a clear number of what's actually built out there. I can't speak to how did the 8 get calculated from the?
The broker showed us at that time. For the 8 spaces.
Is that 8 per unit or 8 total with the 2 units?
It was 8 per unit.
8 per unit, so 16?
Yeah, 6, there's 16.
Right.
So that's 16.
See, it gets better all the time.
How many people work with you besides the students?
Depending on the program that's going on, if it's a rhythm section, it will be myself and another assistant engineer along with the band. If it's a bigger production where there's choirs and more music production, then I'll have a full team with vocalists.
So then you would have, as you're producing, you'd have many more people in the facility performing or recording.
If it's if we're running the production stage setup, we'd have more people in there because now we have a person that we're training on lights in the sound stage. So there'll be more people involved with the whole stage of production.
But also
Not
like
just
the
recording.
choir or something.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other?
I have a question, and this is not directed to you, but to Noah and to Angela. I know you're doing your research, which is great. Have you seen any similar type spaces that you could compare in villages or towns in the area?
So,
For the space, the 1 to 300.
right, so the studio production spaces, because of what the space is being used for, is kind of unique. I would say it's probably most similar to something like and forgive me if I'm wrong for this, Mr. Newman, but when you actually have gatherings of people for a performance or something like that, it's functioning more almost like a concert hall in a way, or a way that you would have like an event center of some sort, but an event center that's centered around a stage. And so there are uses like that around the south suburbs and some of the other communities we've taken a look at, not a ton of them.
Yeah, no, I don't
There's different
expect,
ways of parking them in some of the communities
yeah,
we've looked at.
I don't expect you to go that granular. What I'm
Sure.
talking about is
Yes,
that would, suit a commercial assembly space for something of the 3,000 feet that we're talking about. Have you had any luck with that?
I don't think we've found
I-
that's similar.
no, I mean, not really, for, say, like a concert type venue, it would be pretty small relative to some of the other facilities that I could think of.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
No, probably
Yeah, I mean, we're not gonna discriminate, it's an assembly.
Yeah.
It's a, right, non-commercial assembly, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
It is a unique use for sure, and,
Yeah. the use is, right.
yep.
Okay, I gotta ask another obvious question. How can we consider this a non-commercial use?
It's commercial.
It is a commercial use.
I'm sorry, I said non, I mean,
Yeah,
it's commercial
That's a
assembly.
good question, it is
Yeah.
commercial.
Yep.
It's commercial, right,
Okay,
yeah, I meant to.
just clarifying.
Right.
I got a question for you, just for clarification. So you're doing, say a band coming through Chicago wants to record a live video, concert video, something like that. So you're producing and filming the recording of that as a production event? And you have a live audience for that, or does it run more like a show at House of Blues and you just happen to be recording it? How does it?
Based on the client, I can just give a reference, per se, like, Snarky Puppy, who tours with Steely Dan. They record with the live audience in front of them because it makes them, they feel that they perform better with a live audience for that feedback in the recording stages. Where other artists, they want the doors closed, just to focus. Depending on the artist or the band, that's the whole element, they give them that space and that aura to have that live element that they feel more comfortable recording their album or project with it.
Okay. So if you have somebody in there with the live audience, is it, and I guess this varies, maybe is really what you're saying, is it run like, here, we're doing a full show? Or it's just, here's the 1 or 2 tracks that we're gonna record and it might take a couple takes, but we have a live audience in here? Is that kind of?
Yeah, it would
Okay.
vary, like I said, if it's a full run, if they're doing a full production set, then they're familiar with it, they're gonna run it and just let it go as natural as possible for us to capture it.
Okay. I guess what I'm trying to differentiate is that it's not like you're setting up like a small House of Blues type venue, but you just happen to have a recording facility there to record it as well.
Yeah.
So it's not, you're not putting that out there as, hey, come to Homewood and see live bands on every Saturday night, and we happen to be recording it. It's, here's a production that's going to take place, and we want a live audience here.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be a hot mini
That
house
this-
of blues, yeah.
So everybody understands
Yeah.
that that's the difference. Okay.
Well, we're gonna get a packet with this information on
Yeah.
it, so I mean, we're gonna repeat this whole process again, so I don't think we need to go into to the detail tonight.
It's good to know the
These-
questions you have though, so we can come back with.
Right,
There's a couple of things to clarification. When you're doing a production, whether it's with someone that prefers a live audience or not, what would be the maximum number of people in the building at the same time?
I think that's what they scoped at, the 80.
80.
Yeah, but in a recording environment, that's a bit excessive to have in a room to try to capture.
Okay, what I'm trying to digest is if 80 people come and they drive their own car, there's 80 cars. And it's obviously well beyond any parking accommodation. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right.
What kind of a problem are we going to have in that situation?
So I think a question first that maybe the applicant can provide some information on, because it'll be included in the final packet next week, but maybe start by just explaining just briefly for some hours of operation material. It'll help kind of better answer that question.
So in a normal, the video and the music production world is kind of unique in its hours, but we would be required, we would shut down by 1 o'clock AM. We feel like anything that we need to record, video or audio, should be captured and completed by 1 o'clock AM. The format that I've gathered that I use, well, I didn't use, I've inquired from Abbey Roads, is there are limited parking in Abbey Roads, but when you have the production set, then everybody's assigned a card, so this is how many parking spaces are available, this is the limit of capacity that we're gonna take in for that recording production. So anybody else, they have to carpool or get there by Uber or some other method.
Okay, was any of this discussed prior to the preparation of these materials? In other words, the teaching aspect, the total number of individuals that would occupy the building?
Yes, so
They're not in the material.
no, just because the item is being continued, and so it's just an opportunity for some introductory discussion to the item. They would be included in the full packet for next week when we look at the case for as a hearing item. These have been discussed with the applicant. I'm aware of the general capacity of up to 80, with some of the nuances that Mr. Newman is describing right now, and when that capacity would happen or not happen.
It would have been helpful to have that to stimulate our thinking in preparation for receiving the packet for the next meeting on the 27th.
Okay.
I mean, those two aspects of teaching facility and maximum occupants in the building are important.
Do you have a plan for that, for how you would park 80 people?
If we filled the 80 car capacity, we would have to schedule it in a day where our neighboring businesses are not at use. And I know we've done some analysis of the neighbors, and the only thing that's on the other side of the unit, there's a brewery that's on the far end of our unit. And I've talked with them, they said, yeah, they only use about 6 or 7 spaces on a average Saturday afternoon.
But a lot more on a Saturday evening.
A little bit more on a Saturday, it's still pretty well contained.
I look
So is
forward
it-
to the packet.
So is it common in situations like this, I mean, do you have a lease yet, or do you own the building?
It's for purchase.
For purchase, so, I'm sure there's, if I remember correctly, there's some sort of the equivalent of a homeowners association, a building association, right?
Right.
So I'm wondering if there are bylaws or some kind of, rules that govern the, potential sharing, mutual and reciprocal easements to use all the available parking, yada, yada, yada. So if there isn't, maybe, we need to, think about imposing something like that. Just to make it clean so that you know, your neighbor, the brewery, doesn't come whining that, oh, you know, you said it wouldn't be a problem, but it actually is. So, this is something I think that maybe we should consider as well.
Well, he can inquire, we can't make
I
them.
understand.
Exactly, he can
But we can
inquire.
impose, rules though.
No, we can have him inquire about it, we can't impose a rule that says, we can tell him he can come back and present in defense of his project, that he's talked with, just as we've done in other situations, that he's talked with his neighbors are okay with it, and that could influence our thinking, but we can't go and say, you have to do that.
Well, if he doesn't have an agreement like this, and he's clearly, acknowledging that he's gonna need parking well in excess of what's out there, we could say, hey, you gotta figure this out, if Abbey Road buses people in,
Right.
you know, you could do that too. So what I'm trying to say is we can, like imposing hours of operation, we could strongly suggest, use the word rules, but guidelines here to, try to adjudicate potential problems with parking.
Well, that's the operative word, suggest,
We
that's
can
what,
put conditions on special use.
Right, exactly.
yeah.
And we have done in that in
We've
the
done that in the
past.
past.
Yeah.
But can you put those kind of conditions on?
We limited capacity, I don't know if you recall, to when we had, entertainment venues, we limited capacity of them because of parking.
No, I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about you can't impose a condition that you get permission from your neighbor
Oh, no.
about, right,
No,
that's my
but
point,
we could address it
right.
with.
Yeah, and that's
Well, the
what
burden's
we're
on
doing,
him, the
right.
burden would be on him to work it out,
Right.
however, you know,
Right.
I'm agreeing that we're not, messing with the
No, we,
property owners association, but the condition of approval might include, telling Mr. Nelson to work it out, figure it out.
Well, and how strict is so you said you have designated 16 spaces, is that, how does that work?
Well, what they originally presented was the 8 rows in front, and then there's, rows in back, so 8 in front, 8 in back, right in front of the unit.
So that's the only place your people can park?
That's what was allocated for that.
So you're talking about the listing for that site,
Yeah,
right?
for
So
the
when you
listing.
look at the broker's listing, which I took a look at, so it says that there's the 8 spaces for each tenant unit, if you go and look those up.
Yeah.
But it is, when you actually park at that building, none of those tenants have like reserve, you don't see signs for every 8 spaces saying reserved for this tenant, this tenant. It is shared between all of those tenants, and so, that was kind of to my previous point about the kind of, you can calculate kind of a rough distribution based on the number of tenant spaces. The broker is using that to identify there are 8 spaces roughly per building based on how that building owner or whoever is kind of.
So you own only the space, not the parking spaces, that's all shared,
Yes, it's all shared.
it's all shared,
that's,
right,
that's the clarification.
right.
Alright, well, if there's no further questions, we do need to make a motion and vote on a continuation. So at the bottom of page 32, if somebody would like to make a motion to continue the case.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to continue case 2111 to, our next meeting on June 27, 2024.
You have a case 2415,
Yeah, it
is it?
would be 2415, 2411 is the text amendment,
sorry.
that's being proposed alongside this. Oh, no, that is right.
No, it's 24.
It's 2411, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
Well, it
it's
says
24.
here, it says 2415, so, it says
Where?
continue case 2415.
I don't know where you're seeing that.
I think that's the other one.
Alright,
Case
so,
that pertains to, Mr.
Sorry, I apologize.
situation on Brent's
We
Drive.
have different pages, I have one that, a version that says 2415, yours says 2411, so.
Well, this is another, this is 2415, and the page for that is 2415.
Right, okay, yeah, that's what I was looking at.
okay, so we have a motion to continue case 2411 to the 27th. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Alright, we got a motion by member Cap, second by member O'Brien. Can we get roll call, please?
Member Alfonso,
Yes,
member Cap,
Yeah, yes.
Member O'Brien,
Yes,
Member Johnson,
Yes,
Chair Pro Tem Bransky,
Yes,
motion carries.
eagerly awaiting the details of the packet.
yeah.
All right, thank you. Thank you. We'll look forward to seeing you on the 27th. To continue the discussion. All right, so that does now bring us to case 2415, which is I believe is a straightforward continuation. This is for the text amendment to allow indoor commercial places of assembly in the M1 Limited Manufacturing Zoning District and amend parking standards for place of assembly uses. The applicant is the Village of Homewood. And once again, legal notice was published in the Daily Southtown on May 30th, 2024. The case does affect the village-wide zoning text amendment, and however, no additional mailed notice was required to notify any individual property owners of proposed changes. Did you receive any responses to the publication?
No, there were no public comments on this.
Okay. Again, seeing that we're going to be talking about this again on the 27th, does anybody have any current questions or short commentary before we do a
I've
motion
got
on this one?
questions for clarification so that the material on the 27th is a little bit clearer. On page 28, non-commercial place of assembly, it identifies clubs or lodges. And then in the outdoor, it identifies fraternal. Would they not be the same? Also, under indoor, the last identification is religious institutions, which it can be or doesn't have to be. The paragraph below the table, charitable institutions. My point is we should be consistent with how we're identifying aspects of the ordinance. I have a question with regards to the thinking of how we're gonna change this. Across the street, we have St. John Newman. And under the old ordinance, it was by 4 seats for 1 parking space. Originally, they had 925 seats, and then it was cut back to like 625 or 650, I forget which. And that would require something like 150 parking places, which they do not have currently. Under the new ordinance that went into effect last year, because of the square footage, they would only be required to have 25. That's a dramatic difference. Now, the identification of how that came about was the church, the principal fixed seat facility. However, there is a school, and there is a center, which is the South Building. If there would be let's say a prayer service in the church on the same night that there's meetings in the Burke Center and meetings in the school building, and there's 15 people at each meeting, 3 buildings, that's 45 people. That's more than what the ordinance currently would allow. So one of my questions is, how is that old ordinance calculated only on the principal building? I couldn't find it in a quick glance right here. When I read this, I should have noted it originally, but when I read this the first time, there was something that jumped out to me with regards to assembly in a given building. And I'm looking at that, and that's assemblies in 3 different buildings. You know, the rectory has, it has space in the rectory, and there are meetings that are held in the basement of the rectory. So you could have 4 buildings, all 4 buildings over there. So I'm asking, how is the new approach going to be calculated if it's going to be on the facility that has the fixed seating, that's fine. Is it going to be per building? Because that varies, because as the gentleman that was just here, the applicant that was just here, it's all movable seating. It's all temporary seating. And you could have a meeting of 10 people or 20 people in the same room. So I'm just wondering, to have a discussion up front before you go to the work of your calculations and giving us a presentation in 2 weeks, how this is gonna be approached. I mean, I think your intent and approach to it is a hybrid of parking requirements. I think that's necessary. But the same as the prior applicant, I couldn't figure out why they would be identified as a place of assembly. It's a business. They're in the business of producing, period. They're like a restaurant or something else down the street. It's not a place of assembly. However, in the course of the discussion, there's going to be students, there's going to be a live audience, there's going to be this, all of which was not in the material that we had. So I'm trying to identify, in anticipation of the materials for the next meeting, how this is going to be calculated.
And to add to that, as you said, you could do it by per building, you could do it by function, you could also do it by the site and make it
I
an
think,
aggregate of everything.
I think under the old code, it was by use, and so the St. John ordinance would have been calculated by the school, would have had its own separate use and separate calculation. And the other building would, we would have accounted for all of that and added it all up. And in the new code, it's all by square footage, so it's very different use versus square footage, which I think you're alluding to with the change in, St. John's as a example. It very much lowers the amount of parking that's required, so we would definitely, this is a good occasion, a good time to think about what the impact of that is.
Well, I took St. John as an exaggeration of the example.
But it's,
Because if you have a capacity for meeting in people in a given building, and you go through all 4 buildings, you have a capacity, a requirement for parking that the campus cannot accommodate.
yeah,
Yep.
I agree.
So,
But that would be the case no matter what, because you're talking about the building, you're talking about the square
Square
footage, and
footage,
you're talking
right.
about the use, so you're never gonna
Right.
get beyond that problem, right? I mean, it's,
yeah, and
That's
so.
all- those are all the
each
factors that
of
we
the
take
buildings would,
into
St.
account.
yeah,
Right.
St. John's would be the same thing.
Right, and so there are communities that are, we're not the only community in the region that does this with a combined kind of places of assembly or putting multiple types of these types of uses together into single categories. And you see a lot of what Angela mentioned with kind of a hybrid approach, kind of where you will have this general square footage for some of the things that you mentioned, right? The meeting spaces, the other types of general spaces that you might have, say, let's use the church example. Some of the general space that you have. And then when you have a place that's a regular gathering area, such as again, like a sanctuary for fixed seating, you may have a modifier that adds on for every time you add a fixed seat, for every, say, 4 seats that you have, you're adding a parking space. So it kind of is that hybrid approach. We're not dividing up all these different places of assembly, by individual uses. We're not doing that kind of fine-grained level of every use is looked at separately, like Angela's mentioned the old code does. But it still allows for these situations like the church, where you're going to have a clear expectation of seating in those spaces, where you can, again, kind of add additional parking to accommodate for that seating in a way that you just can't with a general ratio.
It might be helpful in the materials to help us figure out what we're moving towards, to have a couple sample calculations of here's what it would look like under the old and here's what it's gonna
Yep.
look like under the new,
Absolutely.
for what 1 or 2 of the typical uses are gonna be that we're gonna apply this to.
Right.
That would probably be helpful for everybody.
Now, I had a conversation earlier in the week with Noah along these lines, but it came up in an entirely different conversation in different context. I'm not trying to drag the idea of schools into this mix by any means, because I understand perfectly well how public schools are an entity unto themselves. However, my point was, and it was illustrated in Mr. Newman's case, when he talks about he's gonna have a teaching component with some of his activities. We're talking about the church campus across the street where there is a school, Angela, and you're talking about different calculations for parking requirements. And my point is expanding this consideration a little bit. Quite often, the school buildings are places of assembly. They might have, I mean, I've been to health fairs at some of the schools. I've been to other presentations with other speakers in the auditorium or the gym. I mean, I'm sure we all could come up with examples of how this has happened, but my point is, even though public schools might be exempt from all sorts of purview, let's say, with the zoning ordinance, nevertheless, when they're not teaching kids from 7:30 to 3:30 on Monday through Friday, they do indeed house and accommodate other activities that would fall under the non-commercial places of assembly, and I think we should consider them as well in this.
I think you'd just be biting off something that's unnecessary, since the schools are exempt anyway. Adding that just adds another.
Schools are not exempt from zoning.
They're not exempt from zoning.
No,
but
they
they're-
are exempt from building,
From
but not
building,
zoning.
right.
From building codes, but not zoning.
Right.
So they do have to comply with their zoning.
So you're saying that you would, as Member Cap seems to be suggesting, that you would include schools in this definition?
I don't know if they're.
Because I don't think it fits.
No, I think there's a separate definition and a separate category for schools.
Right, so
But they're
that's,
not part of this
right, they're not part
category.
of this, right, that's my point.
Well, the point I would like to make is I would advocate that maybe we consider them, because, and again, over the years I've been here, I've attended plenty of non-school functions after normal school hours. And think about it, most of our elementary schools especially are in residential areas, and I'm not trying to suggest, and nor am I accusing any school facility as having insufficient parking, but
they do.
I mean, it could happen, that's all. And so, whether or not we deem it important enough to consider it, I think it would be imprudent of us not to at least say we discussed it and considered it, and we're not gonna do anything.
I think to bring the conversation full circle and tighten it up, back to Member O'Brien's original point and question would be, along with some sample calculations, maybe refine, if you don't refine, at least give us a list of what's included and what's not included in these definitions, a little bit more meat to it than what's presented here in this table, so that we all have a really good picture of how this will be applied.
Sure, we can provide more examples of what's in the table there.
Yeah,
is
and just
the-
refine the list a little bit, I
Yeah,
think,
it's the zone.
because obviously there's question.
Right, the table just is what is in the zoning ordinance for each of those categories, that's the
Yeah,
zoning.
Maybe we should take the
you didn't-
opportunity to expand or
Yeah, yeah.
refine it.
but
Fine.
right.
Find
Well,
some
you can't-
practical
right,
examples,
but
sure.
it comes right out of the zone, out of the ordinance, right? You
Yeah,
didn't,
it's.
right, so.
But we're gonna be making a text amendment,
Well,
so
that's
we
what I'm
can
saying.
refine it to what we
Right.
think fits, and that's what
No,
we should.
that's
We're,
what-
we're creating the zoning.
right, that's
So
what I'm
this
saying.
conversation on the
So
27th.
let's refine the list, is what's really included and what's not, and
Exactly.
So maybe
we know how it gets applied.
modifications to some of the definitions would be necessary to either include or exclude
we-
certain categories.
we've got
of
an
uses.
opportunity to do
Yeah.
that, so
Right.
staff can make some good suggestions on that then, for us.
Dovetailing on Member Cap's comments, the daycare center, which is identified, correct me if I'm wrong, as a school at 187th and Dixie on the east side of the street. Now, that was a facility that expanded. We had many discussions regarding the parking there, which includes parking in the back. But how would that be factored in here? The mention of the word school, schools are not mentioned in here. That's identified as a school, but it's a daycare center.
Childcare centers are their own category in the code, separate category. There's adult daycare and child daycare, which are separate.
Well, yeah, and if we're
There are
gonna,
standards, they're not part of this.
yeah, if we're gonna, if we are going to amend, the text, then let's just, and we're talking about expanding these definitions, we need to look at the definitions for schools, for daycares and all of that, so we're not, I
Exactly.
don't wanna spend
That's
the
my
night
point.
going through,
Yeah,
you know, whether a daycare.
that's why I said
center-
expand the list, even telling us what's not included, right? So we
No, they
don't
wanna
have to discuss it.
Call themselves,
schools-
it's what they actually are.
Well, but I'm not looking at the school's definition now. Maybe there is a definition of what, there's a definition of what a school is, right? A school may be the definition might include not a commercial or non-commercial place of assembly. I don't have the definition in front of me. So that's one way of just answering it right then, right? It doesn't fit these two categories.
Right.
So,
Right,
so,
Yeah, that'd be straightforward.
yeah.
yeah,
You
that-
can walk into the meeting knowing that, that's it. Okay. All right, so once again, we have we need a motion to officially continue the case, and if you look at the top of page 30, can I get a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would recommend a motion on case 2415, the text amendment to allow indoor commercial places of assembly in M1 Limited Manufacturing Zoning District, amend parking standards for places of assembly uses.
What?
And the continuance to,
I'm sorry?
and to continue it to the meeting of June 27th.
Yeah, I'm just gonna
Wait a minute, is that,
follow up on this box here. The Planning and Zoning Commission may wish to continue case 2415 to the June 27, 2024 hearing of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
so it's only for note
With the wrong
purposes,
title.
it's only the last part of what you said, which is, for purposes of your motion, it's only the last part of what you said, right?
Yeah.
We would have.
He was jumping the gun at the next meeting.
I was reading the topic, and then I was going to read what we wanted to do with it. If that's not
No.
appropriate, let me know.
No.
It's a long title, it's a long topic.
Can I get a second on that?
Yeah.
I'll second it.
All right, motion made by member O'Brien, second by member Cap. Roll call, please.
Member
We're
Alfonso,
really
Yes.
gonna Pick it there.
member Cap,
Yes.
member O'Brien,
Yes,
member Johnson,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem.
Yes.
Bransky, yep. Motion carries.
So once again, member O'Brien, great anticipation for the next meeting. All right, now the main feature of the night brings us to case number, if I can find it. Scrolling up. Yep. 2414. Okay, so case number 2414, special use permit for massage therapy, Obsidian Holistic Services, LLC. Applicant, Erica Washington of same LLC, Obsidian Holistic Services. The action requested is a special use permit for massage therapy establishment at 930 West 175th Street, Suite 1E and 1NE, so I assume that's one east and one northeast, in Homewood. Again, as we run our case, we'll ask the applicant to come up, state their name and address for the record, and we'll swear the applicant in as all testimony is given under oath. We'll give a really brief background, and then we'll let the applicant explain what they want to do. And also, once again, legal notice was published in Daily Southtown on May 30th of 2024, and letters were sent to property owners and residents within 250 feet. Were there any responses to the publication or the letters?
There was one response, there was an individual from the, and I'm forgetting the address, and I should have it written down here, of, the Homewood, I believe Homewood Gardens, is it, the senior living, or the,
Gardens.
yep.
Which is within 250 feet?
Yep, just north of the property. She just wanted information about the project, but didn't have any comments to share on the project itself, but she did leave a comment, so
So
technically.
it was
so-
just an inquiry.
Yep, so it was an inquiry,
Okay.
but we did receive one response.
They're very good. They respond to everything near them when you contact them.
Okay, all right, Ms. Washington, welcome. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Erica Washington, 14741 Main Street, Harvey, Illinois.
And if you could raise your right hand if you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And quick synopsis, this is proposing the addition of massage therapy services to an existing business at the location stated. The business was approved for business operations certificate on February 2nd, 2023 as a wellness center offering counseling, acupuncture, Reiki, if I said that right? Reiki, and other therapy services related to mental and physical health. The addition of massage therapy with several different types listed here, I won't take all your thunder, requires a special use permit for approval. So with that said, we turn to you.
As you said, like, we are a wellness center, and of course, we believe that massage is a part of wellness. So currently, we do clinical mental health counseling, for all ages 13 and up. And I personally do somatic therapy, which is working with the body using, I'm doing clinical mental health therapy, but using the body. And so part of what we do, like, we also have a nurse practitioner that comes to the site, and she does medication management and things like that, but she also would be the person who would be, if the person wants to use insurance for their massage, she would have to actually, like, give them an assessment, you know, finding out if that's necessary, things like that. All of the massage therapists are licensed in the state of Illinois. We have their licenses, we have their insurance, all those different kinds of things. I'm not sure that's what you all want to know.
Well, my first question was, how does it make the operation of your business different, having these services? The logistical operations, I think that's probably some of the questions you're gonna get.
So the only difference is that massage would be there, like, I already provide Reiki and things like that in the spaces. So it would literally just be massage therapists coming in using spaces that are already there to perform their services.
Okay.
So there's no additions, changes, anything like that to the property. It's literally just making this service available.
All right, with that, I'll open it up to the board for questions. Member Johnson, we'll start with you.
This is pretty straightforward. As you just addressed the licenses for massage therapists, those they will obviously have, correct?
And they'll be posted as well.
Right, so, good luck.
Member O'Brien?
Evening. I too think it's just straightforward. I do need to clarify something. You are taking over another suite.
Yes, and so we're in the process of getting that business license as well.
Okay.
So I wanted to, because this process was longer, so I wanted to do this process and then apply for the business license.
When you came before us last year, your suite was 1,109 square feet, correct?
I didn't come last year.
Wasn't it last year?
She had in mind a special use.
This is the first time I've done the special use hearing.
We had a case very similar to her case last year, if you guys don't remember.
No, I remember.
Well, I do, but it was across the street too.
Right.
as I
Next door,
recall.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's why when I was going through
right, you thought it's the same, right,
This isn't the same.
yeah. There's a case, very similar to yours.
Well, correct me, where am I going wrong? The business was approved for a business operation certificate on February 2nd, 2023 as a wellness center.
So we've been in business, with like, the business has been there for a year now, we just haven't had
That's my
massage
point.
therapy.
The business that you've been in for a year, when that was discussed, that particular suite was 1,109 square feet. Now, there's a drawing in the materials for the suite that you've taken over, 512 square feet. And so in the material, it says the current space, which is 1,621 square feet, that is how you get to that particular number, correct?
Oh,
Yes.
probably, yeah,
Okay.
because I'm like, it shouldn't be 16, the one space, I think is 11 something and the other.
1,109
is
and 512 is what you're picking up, that's 1,621 square feet. It's not spelled out here, and I'm just trying to connect the dots for the record. That's the only question I have, thank you.
Member Cap?
Good evening. I'm just looking for clarification. We seem to be, which is good, precise on hours of operation, days of the week, hours of operation. So you were clear, I think, about your days of operation. And you have a reference to 8 AM to 7 PM on an appointment basis, Monday through Sunday. So that's essentially 7 days a week. Okay, and only 8 AM to 7 PM.
Yes,
Okay, now can you, thank you, can you,
actually, can I actually amend that to 8?
8 AM to 8 AM?
Yeah.
8
PM.
PM?
Mhm.
Okay. The other question I have is, do you have an idea of what your actual peak hours might be?
We don't really have peak hours because it's by appointment only, and a lot of the clinical part is virtual hours. So we don't really have, like, at the most, I think we've had maybe 3 or 4 clients in our suite at one time. And that is probably like more in the evening because people are getting off of work, so like, I would say probably from about 5, between 5 to 8
Okay.
would be
That's
peak,
fine.
if anything.
You know, I'm not holding you to it, I'm just curious. And it is a question that we routinely ask.
Definitely.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm good.
Member Alfonso?
Well, hi, good evening. I think adding massage therapy to your services just makes a lot of sense. That really they complement each other, and the people who are looking for help with all kinds of issues would benefit from this. Now, Reiki, that didn't require a special use.
They told me it didn't.
Okay.
When I applied last year, massage was the only thing I had to take off, cause I had massage on there, but she said we wouldn't be able to do the business license, I would have to do the special use. And so it's just taken me a year to actually do the special use.
So it's
But,
just that we've called out massage as a special use versus other.
Massage just is its own, category, and I think that has to do with the state licensing, because they license it you have to get a separate license for massage.
Okay.
So it's always been a separate category in our business operations certification.
Well, I think, again, I think it's a wise move on your point to add it. How old, you said you do work with some youth, would the massage therapist work on the children, or
We do
used to,
have,
yeah?
massage therapists that do peds, massages, yes. Right now, we only do 13 and older because we don't have a child therapist, but once we get a child therapist, then we'll.
Okay. Okay, I think that's all I have, thank you.
Just out of curiosity on that point, are there special requirements or regulations regarding that massage for children? That are any different than for an adult? Just
They
have to
go-
have the properly certified person.
Yeah, any licensed massage therapist can do peds massage, it's just they they have to get training on that specifically.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. It also makes perfect sense to me, to add, so. That said, is there any, questions or comments from the audience or from our online viewership, if there is any? Yeah, if you could, state your name and address for the record, and then I'll also be swearing you in, because again, all testimony is given under oath. We just got questions and comments, we've always done that.
Yeah, we always have.
Okay, well,
Good, follow tradition.
so, yeah, sir, if you could, yeah, give us your name and address for the record, if you have a question.
Board of directors at the Garden Home and Place, that's adjacent to your establishment. We were just concerned, we got a letter regarding if you're moving in the community. We just like, they said we're here to get more information on what was actually going on.
So we've been there since February of last year, and again, we provided counseling, we provide Reiki, somatic therapy, also do, like, I do herbal consultations, all the holistic things that you can do, we do there. And so, this was just adding the massage therapy. It probably would actually be beneficial for a lot of your residents. You know, for them to be able to have those services. We're actually in the process of, being paneled with Medicare, so soon that would be another option. So that is definitely, you know, something that once we do have it, we'll, put out there for people in the community.
You want to make sure it wasn't a massage parlor.
Okay, anything else? Okay, at this point then, I'd like to entertain a motion for case 2414, which we have some suggested wording on the top of page 17 of the packet. Can I get a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recommend approval of case number 2414 to the Village Board of Trustees to grant a special use permit to permit the operation of a massage therapy use in the B4 shopping center zoning district by Obsidian Holistic Services LLC at 930 West 175th Street. Subject to findings of fact.
And there's an amendment to the findings of fact, correct? Member Cap? The hours of operation.
Yes.
Yes,
that's
that would be
correct.
item number 7, which would be amended, request made by the applicant to amend that from 8 AM to 7 PM to 8 AM to 8 PM.
Correct.
So that should be considered in your vote. Can I get a second?
Second.
Motion made by member Cap, second by member O'Brien. Can I get a roll call, please?
Member Alfonso,
Yes,
member Cap,
Yes,
member O'Brien,
Yes.
member Johnson,
Yes.
and Chair Pro Tem Bransky.
Yes.
Motion carries.
What is the applicant's next steps?
Allow me to go to the village board. I'm not sure the next date, but we go to, that'll be July 9. When would be the next date? We would
The
have-
next village board meeting is, June 25th.
Okay. Okay. Great, so
Good luck.
25th, then we refer to the village board. I can reach out to you directly and give you some more information after this as well, so.
Okay. Would I need to be on that?
You didn't need to attend, and it should be, because it's a unanimous recommendation, it should be on the next agenda. Consent agenda, but just be added in.
Good luck.
Thanks so much for
Good
being
luck.
here.
All right, that brings us to item 6 on our agenda. Any old business that needs to be discussed, kicked around? Okay, number 7, any new business? All right,
I have a question. The casino, could you comment about the delay in the casino, the timeline? How far back now they are projecting?
The casino is projecting opening in November,
The casino.
But not the hotel.
not the hotel,
Right.
the hotel will open in the spring,
Yeah, originally it was August, now it's November.
no, it's November.
What I understand is they can't do anything regarding the floors because of the lights coming in from Italy. And they need the lifts. They can't use the lifts on the floor if they were to install the floor, because they would obviously destroy the floor. So they have to wait several months for the lights to come in from Italy.
So what they gotta do, and they gotta change the light bulb.
She could have, I remember
I
down
said-
there could have taken
I
care of
could have
that when
brought
she
it
was
back
in
with me.
Italy.
Yeah, you could have brought it back with you. Lack of planning.
I don't know if any of you remember, it was quite humorous. Years ago, the Standard Oil building lost
Yeah,
its facing. And so they decided to remove all the facing and reface the entire building from Italy. And the quarries in Italy would go on strike. So as we were riding the IC down to the office, Chicago, you'd see it would go up 1, 2, 3, 4 stories, and then it would sit like that for weeks. And they'd be on strike, and then they'd be off strike, and then it'd go up another 4 to 5 stories. It was hilarious until they got the entire Standard Oil building completed.
Oh my gosh.
So when they mentioned this to me, it reminded me of that situation. So it's back to November now.
November, that's the last I heard.
The reason I'm trying to keep up on that is because I have a concern about the impact of the traffic and parking. And some of the issues we've had in the interim, I think are going to be felt by the impact of the traffic.
Okay,
No, go ahead.
anyone else? All right, that brings us to item 8, adjourn the meeting. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Can I get a second? All right,
Right.
roll call, please.
Member Alfonso,
Yes.
member Cap,
Yes.
member O'Brien,
Yes,
member Johnson,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Bransky.
Yes.
Motion carries. It is
Thank you for attending.
7:06.
Be sure to come to the next action-packed edition.
Chair Pro Tem and Member O'Brien. Chair, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
the question about swearing in with.
We should check on
Yeah,
that.
let's check on
Makes
that.
sense.
Let's- Because, yeah,
If you just have a-
why would a member of the audience have to swear? And, I mean, they could give, you can understand. if
We've
it's
just
a
always
question,
done that.
You live in the community, you should state that you live in the community,
Yeah.
give your address. But do you have to be sworn in if you're just making comments? You're not giving testimony.
No.
And you're not subjecting yourself to questions, right?
I guess the only thing would be if you're, I mean, we've had instances where somebody